Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Auspicious day. It's Ekadashi, and I warmed up for this by chanting 64 rounds. And I came for the first time and sat down when nobody was in the room. I thought, oh no, nobody's going to come. But that's just because I was early. Or no, I was on time for a change, actually. That's what really happened. And then, just a couple of minutes after I sat down, Ben and Ida came in the room, and never having walked into this room or into a Hare Krishna temple before. And I looked at them, and I've seen you guys before. And immediately they sat down on the floor like yogis. And I said, don't worry, to Ida, I said, don't worry, you don't have to shave your head. And she said, oh yeah, I'd love to, tonight. If you can just tuck my mom into it, I'll do it tonight. And I said, okay, that means you've been around for a while. And then we talked about incarnation, reincarnation, and everything. And we can see that Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada told us this, literally, that the devotees of Lord Chaitanya have taken birth all over the world from previous lifetimes, and they're just waiting to get picked up, to come back to Krishna's family, actually, so that they can feel comfortable in this material world, despite all the chaos and confusion that's going on. So we're so fortunate. We're so fortunate. I'm going to get choked up now, so I got to stop. I'll start reading. There's a lovely... Sorry, here we have your chair right here for you. This is Sarvabhauma. I'd like you to meet Ben and Ida. They're coming for the first time, and they're devotees. They've been, they're devotees for lifetimes, but they're just formalizing already.
Look like devotees?
Yeah, I told you. And we got, our newest shaved up, our new chrome dome. And yeah, Prabhupada told us that if you chant Hare Krishna sincerely and eat nothing but Krishna and eat nothing but Krishna prasadam for some time, your body actually changes. It becomes spiritualized, and it can be visibly seen. Even you look at yourself in the mirror after 46 years, you're... Who is that? Is that me? Okay. Sanatana Goswami was a great spiritual teacher. This is Ekadasi, it's a special day, but it's also the Ekadasi before the appearance of Rahadev, one of the incarnations of God, which you'll hear about later. And then Lord Nityananda, Nityananda Trayodasi, the appearance day of Lord Nityananda, which is also an extremely important day for us. Just a few days ago, it was Advaita Acharya's appearance day. Then day after tomorrow is going to be Nityananda's appearance day. Then a couple of weeks from then is going to be Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. And these are the it's all organized, so we can worship them one after the other, more and more intimately, until we get to Lord Chaitanya, the source of all other incarnations. So one of the great devotees of Lord Chaitanya was Sanatana Goswami, and he wrote a prayer glorifying the book that we're going to be reading from. So if you listen to this prayer, there you go. We chant this together, English and Sanskrit and English, and if you pay attention and meditate on this prayer, you'll learn a lot about what we're doing. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram, the glories of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad-Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwan Duritaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Savasevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsagin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Man Nistadaka Madbhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin, hatini chochata kada, hanamun chagadatin mam, premna rit kanta yospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So for the benefit of Ben and Ida, I'll just put this in context because you're coming right in the middle of something. So Krishna, he appeared about 5,000 years ago, and he stayed here for 125 years. And while he was here, a lot of things changed. The sovereignty of the earth transformed from a demoniac nature to a divine personality. And when the job was done, and of course he's everywhere, he's in everyone's heart all the time, but he has his own personal form as well that's eternal and stays the same and never changes. And he appears every once in a while. When every once in a while means every 8,600,000,000 years, he appears on this planet himself personally. And towards the end of that 125 years, when it was time for him to move on, when he'd done his duty to remove the burden of the earth, he met with one of his most intimate devotees, eternal associates, Uddhava. And Uddhava knew, he was so intimate, because you know, when you're intimate with another person, you know their minds, and especially pure devotees of Krishna, who are intimate associates, eternal associates, they know the mind of Krishna. So he knew that Krishna was going to leave. So what he did was, he found him sitting underneath the tree, and he said, okay, I understand you're going to go. Don't leave me here. Take me with you. And now Krishna is instructing him why he wants him to stay back. And he has a particular mission for him to do. So then Uddhava said, okay, please explain to me everything. So now what we're hearing is Krishna explaining to Uddhava everything. And it forms a few chapters towards the end of this book, the Srimad-Bhagavatam. We're starting off with the text 29 of the 7th chapter, the beginning of the teachings of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Uddhava, his intimate devotee. Although all people within the material world are burning in the great forest fire of lust and greed, you remain free and are not burned by that fire. You are just like an elephant who takes shelter from a forest fire by standing within the water of the Ganges River. Purport. The natural result of transcendental bliss is described in this verse. The young Brahmana was physically very attractive, and his senses were full of potency for material enjoyment. So I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong context. This is Yadu. Krishna is explaining to Uddhava, and in doing that, he's explaining a story about how Yadu, a great devotee from before, met a Brahmana who was a liberated soul, and he was just wandering around, and Yadu was so advanced, he could see that this person was advanced, just like we could see that you two were special when you walked in the door. Only he was way far more advanced to what he could see. And this Brahmana is going to explain to Yadu, and Krishna is explaining it to Uddhava, how this Brahmana learned by his own intelligence, by observation of the world, many things. The natural result of transcendental bliss is described in this verse. The young Brahmana was physically very attractive, and his senses were full of potency for material enjoyment. Yet he was not at all affected by material lust. This position is called mukti, or liberation. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that within the Ganges flow great currents of water capable of extinguishing a blazing fire. If an elephant maddened by sex desire stands within the Ganges, its powerful cooling currents extinguish his lust, and the elephant becomes pacified. Similarly, ordinary human beings trapped in the cycle of birth and death are constantly harassed by the enemies of lust and greed, which never allow the mind to be completely peaceful. But if, following the example of the elephant, one situates oneself within the cooling waves of transcendental bliss, then all material desire will certainly soon be extinguished, and one will become shanta, or peaceful. As described in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Atayeva Shanta. Thus, everyone should take to the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and cleanse himself in the cooling waters of Krishna consciousness, our real, eternal consciousness. Text 30. O Brahmana, we see that you are devoid of any contact with material enjoyment, and you are traveling alone, without any companions or family members. This we call the conchal of Maya. This is the call of Maya to get us to go and join the oil that they're carrying back and forth. We just happen to be on this line of Hare Krishna. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes until this train goes by and does its thing. Comfy? If you want it, you can sit on the couch or sit on the chair. I'm telling you, they're here before. Okay. O Brahmana, we see that you are devoid of any contact with material enjoyment, and that you are traveling alone, without any companions or family members. Therefore, because we are sincerely inquiring from you, please tell us the cause of the great ecstasy that you are feeling within yourself. Purport. The word kevalatmana is significant here. Unless one has practical realization of the Supreme Soul and the individual soul who reside together within the heart of every living being. It is very difficult to artificially adopt the sannyas order of life and travel without the association of wife, children, or other family members. The nature of every living being is to make friends with others and to offer his love to a suitable person. One who has realized the Supreme Person is satisfied to always carry the personality of Godhead within his heart as his constant companion. Unless one has realized that Krishna is one's only true friend and that Krishna is within one's heart, one will remain attached to the temporary relationships of the material world. Text 31. Lord Krishna continued, so Krishna is now talking to Uddhava. It's layer upon layer of conversation. Lord Krishna continued, the intelligent king Yadu, always respectful to the Brahmanas, waited with bowed head as the Brahmana, pleased with the king's attitude, began to reply. Text 32. The Brahmana said, my dear king, with my intelligence, I have taken shelter of many spiritual masters. Having gained transcendental understanding from them, I now wander about the earth in a liberated condition. Please listen as I describe them to you. Purport. The word buddhyapashrita in this verse indicates that the Brahmana's spiritual masters did not directly speak to him. Instead, he learned from them by his intelligence. All living entities who are inimical to Lord Krishna glorify useless material things and spend their lives trying to lord it over the material objects they falsely worship. Thus, the conditioned souls try to increase their duration of life, as well as their fame and beauty, by means of mundane religiosity, economic development, and gross sense gratification. King Yadu noticed that the saintly Avadhuta did not behave like that. Therefore, the king was inquisitive to find out the actual situation of the Brahmana. In reply to the king, the saintly Brahmana states, I do not consider the 24 elements of the physical world as objects of my sense gratification, and therefore I don't consider accepting or rejecting them. Rather, I accept the material elements as my instructing spiritual masters. Thus, even though wandering throughout the material world, I am never bereft of service to the Guru. Taking shelter of steady intelligence, I travel about the earth constantly engaged on the transcendental platform. By intelligence, I transcend useless desires, and my ultimate goal is loving devotional service of the Lord. Now I shall explain to you about my 24 spiritual masters. Text 35 to 33 to 35. O king, I have taken shelter of 24 gurus, who are the following: the earth, air, sky, water, fire, moon, sun, pigeon, and python. The sea, moth, honeybee, elephant, and honey thief. The deer, the fish, the prostitute, Pingala, the kurari bird, and the child, and the young girl, arrow maker, serpent, spider, and wasp. My dear king, by studying their activities, I have learned the science of the self. Purport. The wasp is known as Supeshakrit because it causes the insect that it kills to take a beautiful form in the next life. Text 36. Please listen, O son of Maharaj Yayati, O tiger among men, as I explain to you what I have learned from each of these gurus. O sober person, even when harassed by other living beings, a sober person, even when harassed by other living beings, should understand that his aggressors are acting helplessly under the control of God, and that thus he should never be distracted from progress on his own path. This rule I have learned from the earth. Purport. The earth is the symbol of tolerance. By deep oil drilling, atomic explosions, pollution, and so on, the earth is constantly harassed by demoniac living entities. Sometimes lush forests are cut down by greedy men with commercial interests, and thus a wasteland is created. Sometimes the earth's surface is soaked by the blood of soldiers fighting in a savage warfare. Yet despite all these disturbances, the earth continues to provide all the necessities of the living beings. In this way, one may learn the art of tolerance by studying the earth. Text 38. A saintly person should learn from the mountain to devote all his efforts to the service of others, and to make the welfare of others the sole reason for his existence. Similarly, as the disciple of the tree, he should learn to dedicate himself to others. Purport. Great mountains bear unlimited quantities of earth, which in turn give sustenance to innumerable forms of life, such as trees, grass, birds, animals, and so on. Mountains also pour forth unlimited quantities of crystalline water in the form of waterfalls and rivers, and this water gives life to all. By studying the example of mountains, one should learn the art of providing for the happiness of all living entities. Similarly, one may take excellent lessons from the pious trees, who offer innumerable benefits such as fruits, flowers, cooling shade, and medicinal extracts. Even when a tree is suddenly cut down and dragged away, the tree does not protest, but continues to give service to others in the form of firewood. Thus, one should become the disciple of such magnanimous trees and learn from them the qualities of saintly conduct. According to Srila Madhvacharya, the word pararthakanta sambhava indicates that one should dedicate all one's wealth and other assets to the welfare of others. By one's acquired opulence, one should especially try to please the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the demigods, as well as all truly respectable superior personalities, will automatically be pleased. By developing saintly conduct, as described in this verse, one will become tolerant, and this will free one from the useless agitation of the material senses, which drive one to wander throughout the world, searching in vain for material happiness. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also emphasized the tree's quality of tolerance. Tudor api sahishnuna kirtaniyat sada hari. One who is as tolerant as a tree can chant the holy name of Krishna constantly, finding ever new satisfaction. Text 39. O learned sage, a learned sage should take his satisfaction in the simple maintenance of his existence and not seek satisfaction through gratifying the material senses. In other words, one should care for the material body in such a way that one's higher knowledge is not destroyed, and so that one's speech and mind are not deviated from self-realization. Purport. That means we keep ourselves healthy, but for the purpose of self-realization and for no other reason. A wise man does not absorb his consciousness in the forms, flavors, aromas, and sensations of material sense gratification, but rather accepts activities such as eating and sleeping, simply to keep the body and soul together. One must properly maintain one's body by regulated activities of eating, sleeping, cleansing, etc. Otherwise, the mind will become weak, and one's spiritual knowledge will fade away. If one eats too austerely, or if in the name of selflessness one accepts impure food, surely one loses control of the mind. On the other hand, if one eats food that is excessively fatty or rich, there will be unwanted increase in sleep and semen, and thus the mind and speech will be overwhelmed by the modes of passion and ignorance. Lord Krishna has summarized the whole matter in the Bhagavad Gita by his statement, Yuktahara viharasya yukta chetasya karmasu. One should moderately and intelligently regulate all of one's bodily activities so that they are favorable for self-realization. This technique is taught by the bona fide spiritual master. If one is too austere, or if one engages too much in sense gratification, self-realization is impossible. It is the duty of a devotee of the Lord to avoid seeing any object as separate from Krishna, because that is illusion. A gentleman will never try to enjoy the property of another gentleman. Similarly, if one sees everything in relation to Krishna, there is no scope for material sense gratification. But if one sees material objects as separate from Krishna, then one's material enjoying propensity is immediately aroused. A human being must be intelligent enough to distinguish between prayas, or temporary gratification, and shreyas, permanent benefit. One may accept sense activity in a regulated, limited fashion so that one will be strong for serving Krishna. But if one excessively indulges the material senses, one will lose one's gravity and seriousness in spiritual life and act like an ordinary materialist. The ultimate goal, as stated here, is jnana, or steady consciousness of the absolute truth, Lord Krishna. Text 40. Even a transcendentalist is surrounded by innumerable material objects which possess good and bad qualities. However, one who has transcended material good and evil should not become entangled even when in contact with the material objects. Rather, he should act like the wind. Purport. The wind is the external manifestation of air, whereas prana is the internal manifestation. When the wind passes over waterfalls, sprinkles of clear water, and thus becomes most refreshing. Sometimes the wind blows through a beautiful forest, carrying the fragrance of fruits and flowers. At other times, the wind may fuel a fire that burns the same forest to ashes. The wind, however, being fixed in its own nature, remains neutral in both its auspicious and inauspicious activities. Similarly, within this material world, we will inevitably face both pleasing and disgusting situations. If, however, we remain fixed in Krishna consciousness, we will not be disturbed by the inauspicious, nor will we become attached to the materially auspicious. In the course of his spiritual duties, a devotee sometimes finds himself chanting Hare Krishna in a beautiful country atmosphere, and sometimes he finds himself doing the same thing in a hellish city. In both cases, the devotee fixes his mind upon Lord Krishna and experiences transcendental bliss. Although the wind passes through the most dark and forbidding places, the wind is not frightened or disturbed. Similarly, A devotee of Lord Krishna, should never be fearful or anxious, even when in the most difficult situation. One who is attached to materially pleasing forms, tastes, smells, sounds, and touches will also be repelled by the opposite in each category. Thus, finding himself surrounded by innumerable good and bad things, the materialist is constantly disturbed. When the wind blows in many directions at once, the atmosphere becomes agitated. Similarly, if the mind is constantly attracted and repelled by material objects, there will be such mental disturbance that it will be impossible to think of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should learn from the blowing wind the art of moving throughout the material world without attachment. Text 41. Although a self-realized soul may live in various material bodies while in this world, experiencing their various qualities and functions, he is never entangled, just as the wind, which carries various aromas, does not actually mix with them. Purport. Although we experience the wind as fragrant or foul, depending on the aromas it carries, the wind does not, in fact, change its actual nature. Similarly, although we regard a particular person as strong or weak, intelligent or retarded, beautiful or homely, good or bad, the pure spirit soul, who is the actual person, does not really possess any of the qualities of the body, but is merely covered, just as is covered by different aromas. Thus, the conscious person is always aware that he is different from the temporary body. He experiences the various transformations of the body, such as childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. But although he experiences the pains, pleasures, qualities, and functions of that body, a Krishna conscious person never thinks that he is the body. He always understands that he is an eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of Lord Krishna. As stated in this verse, na yujjate yogi, he is not entangled. The conclusion is that one should never consider a Krishna conscious person in terms of bodily designation, but should see him as an eternal servitor of the Lord. Text 42. A thoughtful sage, even while living within a material body, should understand himself to be pure spirit soul. Similarly, one should see that the spirit soul enters within all forms of life, both moving and non-moving, and that the individual souls are thus all-pervading. The sage should further observe that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the Supersoul, is simultaneously present within all things. Both the individual soul and the Supersoul can be understood by comparing them to the nature of the sky. Although the sky extends everywhere and everything rests within the sky does not mix with anything, nor can it be divided by anything. Purport. Although air exists within the sky or space is different from air. Even in the absence of air, space or sky is present. All material objects are situated within space or within the vast material sky. But the sky remains undivided, and although accommodating all objects, never actually mixes with anything. In the same way, one can understand the situation of both the individual soul and the supersoul. The individual soul is all-pervading because there are innumerable jivatmas which enter within all things. Yet, as confirmed in the Vedic literature, every individual atma remains infinitesimal. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad 5.9 states, Balagra shatabhagasya shatadha kalpitasya cha bhago jivak savigyeya sachanandjaya kalpate. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. The same is stated in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Kishagra shatabhagasya shatangsha sadrishatmakaha jivak sukshma surupo yam sankhya-tito hichitkanaha. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms, which are measured as 1/10,000th the upper tip, the upper portion of the hair. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is all-pervading because He Himself is personally present everywhere. The Lord is known as Advaita, or indivisible. Thus, the same unique personality of Godhead exists everywhere, just like the sky, and yet is not attached to anything, although everything is resting within Him. The Lord Himself has confirmed this analysis of His all-pervasiveness in the Bhagavad Gita 9.6. Yata kashastito nityam vayu sarvatrago mahan tata sarvani bhutani matstani drupadaraya. As the almighty wind blowing everywhere always rests in ethereal space, know that in the same manner all beings rest in me. Therefore, although both the Jiva soul and the Super soul are said to be all-pervading, it should be remembered that there are innumerable individual Jiva souls, whereas there is only one Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is always supreme, and one who was actually a thoughtful sage never doubts the supreme position of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Pretty nice purports, eh? This is knowledge. This is knowledge. All over the world, sectarian religionists are crying out, God is great, God is great. Not yours, mine. And we'll fight over it if you don't believe me. That's because they're in ignorance. They're without knowledge of how great God is and who they are in relationship with God and who they are in relationship to this material world and how God is related to the material world. This is called Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of the relationship between the Lord, the material energy, and the living entity. Text 43. Although the mighty wind blows clouds and storms across the sky is never implicated or affected by these activities. Similarly, the spirit soul is not actually changed or affected by contact with the material nature. Although the living entity enters within a body made of earth, water, and fire, and although he is impelled by the three modes of nature created by eternal time, his eternal spiritual nature is never actually affected. Physics. Physics. This is spiritual physics. Okay? Purport. Although the sky appears to be affected by the mighty movements of wind, rain, hurricanes, lightning, and thunder, etc., the sky, being very subtle, is actually not affected. But is rather the background for such visible activities. Similarly, although the material body and mind undergo innumerable changes, such as birth and death, happiness and distress, love and hate, the eternal living entity is merely the background for such activities. The spirit soul, being most subtle, is not actually affected. Only due to misidentification with the superficial activities of the body and mind does the soul undergo terrible distress within the material world. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya has pointed out that the individual living entity must struggle to revive his divine spiritual qualities. The living entity is part and parcel of the supreme entity called Krishna. And as such, the individual soul is also a reservoir of godly qualities. The personality of Godhead, however, automatically manifests these qualities without any hindrance, whereas the conditioned soul must struggle to revive such qualities. Thus, although both the personality of Godhead and the personality of the living entity are eternal and transcendental, the personality of Godhead is always supreme. By realizing all this with clear intelligence, the conditioned soul can rise to the spiritual platform. Text 44. O King, a saintly person is just like water, because he is free from all contamination, gentle by nature, and by speaking creates a beautiful vibration, like that of flowing water. Just by seeing, touching, or hearing such a saintly person, the living entity is purified, just as one is cleansed by contact with pure water. Thus a saintly person, just like a holy place, purifies all those who contact him, because he always chants the glories of the Lord. Purport. The word apam mitram, just like water, can also be read as agan mitram, which means that a saintly person purifies all living entities by accepting them as mitram, or as personal friends, and saves them from their sinful reactions, agat. The conditioned living entity falsely identifies with his gross material body and subtle mind, and thus falls from the platform of spiritual knowledge. A conditioned living being is always lusty for material sense gratification, and if he does not acquire it, becomes angry. Because he is so obsessed with fear of losing his material gratification that he enters a stage approaching madness. Sometimes he is so obsessed with fear of losing his material gratification that he enters a stage approaching madness. This is so good stuff. Listen to this. I got to repeat this again. The conditioned living entity falsely identifies with his gross material body and subtle mind, and thus falls from the platform of spiritual knowledge. A conditioned living entity is always lusty for material sense gratification, and if he does not acquire it, he becomes angry. Sometimes he is so obsessed with fear of losing his material gratification that he enters a stage approaching madness. A saintly person, however, is like pure water, free from all contamination and capable of purifying all things. Just as pure water is transparent, a saintly person transparently manifests the personality of Godhead within his heart. Such love of Godhead is the reservoir of all happiness. Water makes a most pleasing vibration as it flows and cascades, and similarly, the sound vibration of the Lord's pure devotee, who is saturated with the glories of the Lord, is most charming and beautiful. Thus, by studying the nature of water, one can understand the symptoms of a pure devotee of the Lord. How beautiful is that? Text 45. Saintly persons become powerful by execution of austerities. Their consciousness is unshakable because they do not try to enjoy anything within the material world. Such naturally liberated sages accept food that is offered to them by destiny, and if by chance they happen to eat contaminated food, they are not affected. Just like fire, which burns up contaminated substances that are offered to it. Purport. The word Uddhava bhajana indicates that a saintly person eats only to keep body and soul together and not for sense gratification. One should eat palatable food to maintain one's mind in a cheerful mood. Shall we hear that one again? Oh, all right. Oh, all right. If you insist, I'll go ahead. One should eat palatable food to maintain one's mind in a cheerful mood. However, one should not eat luxuriously because this will cause sex desire and laziness. A saintly person is always a perfect gentleman and is never greedy or lusty. Although Maya tries to defeat him by offering different material allurements, ultimately these attractive material features are themselves defeated by the spiritual power of a saintly person. Thus, one should never disrespect a spiritually advanced personality, but should worship him reverentially. To carelessly approach a Krishna-conscious personality is just like carelessly approaching fire, which immediately burns if not handled properly. The Lord does not excuse mistreatment of a pure devotee. 46. A saintly person, just like fire, sometimes appears in a concealed form and at other times reveals himself. For the welfare of the conditioned souls who desire real happiness, a saintly person may accept the worshipable position of spiritual master, and thus, like fire, he burns to ashes all the past and sinful and future sinful reactions of his worshippers by mercifully accepting their offerings. Purport. A saintly person prefers to conceal his exalted spiritual position, but to instruct the suffering people of the world, he sometimes reveals his own greatness. This is compared to a fire that sometimes burns unnoticed beneath ashes and sometimes blazes openly. Just as fire devours the ghee and other offerings given by the performers of sacrifice, similarly, a saintly person accepts the praise offered by his conditioned followers, knowing that in fact all praise is meant for the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Although an ordinary person immediately becomes puffed up and foolish when he is praised, such inauspicious tendencies within a saintly person are burned to ashes by his attachment to the absolute truth. In this way, he is just like fire. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is hard to stop, you know. It was the same, like last night it was the same. It was hard to find a place to stop because we can't. Hare Krishna. Text 47. Just as fire manifests differently in pieces of wood of different sizes and qualities, the omnipotent Supreme Lord, having entered the bodies of higher and lower life forms, created by his own potency, appears to assume the identity of each. Next time you look at a bird, think about that. Purport. Although the Supreme Lord is within everything, everything is not the Lord. By the mode of goodness, the Lord creates the exalted material bodies of demigods and brahmanas, and by expanding the mode of ignorance, he similarly creates the bodies of animals, shudras, and other lower forms of life. The Lord enters all of these superior and inferior creations, but he remains Vibhu, the all-powerful, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that although fire is present within smoldering wood, it blazes forth when we stir the wood around. Similarly, although the personality of Godhead is indirectly present everywhere, when we chant and hear his glories with love and devotion, the Lord is stirred into manifestation and directly appears before his devotees. Whoa! No one would mind if I read that again? Oh, all right. All right, you convinced me. You convinced me. You convinced me. Okay, I'll do it. Twist my arm. Go ahead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that although fire is present within smoldering wood, it blazes forth when we stir the wood around. Similarly, although the personality of God is indirectly present everywhere, when we chant and hear his glories with love and devotion, the Lord is stirred into manifestation and directly appears before his devotees. This is the way we can see the Lord present in the pages of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. If we hear with love and affection, love and devotion. The foolish conditioned souls, there was a saying Jesus Christ said, let those who have ears hear. The foolish conditioned souls ignore the spectacular presence of the Lord within everything, and instead absorb their mediocre consciousness in their own temporary material coverings, thinking, I am a strong man, I am a beautiful woman, I am the richest man in this city, I am a PhD, and so on. One should cut off such useless entanglement and accept the fact that one is pure spirit soul, the eternal blissful servant of Lord Krishna. We'll stop there. Okay, now we have a section which called our open mic program. There's a microphone that moves around, and if anything that you heard inspired you to reflect on it, or want to discuss more about it, or you want to inquire about, be our guests. Hare Krishna. Yes, Krishna Kripa. Start us rolling.
This is quite an interesting place to step into the reading program, having been in the woods for the past 3 months, where 90% of my heat comes from wood stoves, where I gather the wood every day to be able to do that. And particularly this last purport, where Vishwanath Chakravarti was explaining how the fire is already there. I had a lot of realizations in that direction of how fire works. Because even I would put little twigs or a toothpick into the coals because they'd just be around the room. They would literally explode. And you know the size of a toothpick. It would explode in 4-inch flames. I mean, there's not even a 1/4 of an inch of toothpick there. And yet the flames would just blow up at a certain point just because it was sitting on the hot coals. Just a nice realization. Thank you.
Prabhupada explained that the sun actually puts the fire in the wood. It's there in combustible objects. The fire is there. Actually, the fire is everywhere, even in our own bodies. Krishna says that we have this fire of digestion, and without it, we couldn't digest our food. You know, we couldn't stay warm by just covering ourselves with something. It's not that the blanket is warm. The blanket becomes warm by the body heat, and that fire is everywhere. So, and therefore, it's what you said is quite cogent, applicable to what we just heard. So, if we become Krishna conscious, then this fire comes out when we're in contact with Krishna conscious persons or Krishna conscious things. Well, Krishna conscious things means the Bhagavatam. If we sit together and do that, I love that part. I'll just reflect my own reflection. That part about stirring, you know, I mean, it was just so. And then if we sit here together and churn this nectar by hearing together, from an authoritative source, then God just comes out. It comes out, and we taste it. It's real. It's not imaginary. It's actually real. And the satisfaction that we hear, Ben and Ida are here for the first time, and I have no doubt in my mind that you're tasting something special by hearing this put so nicely. Even things that you've seen and heard and maybe haven't been able to put together. This is what this Brahman is teaching us, how to look at the world. But it's not that we shouldn't have spiritual master, not that we should think that those things are our gurus and we shouldn't have a spiritual master personally who's teaching us these things. But it shows the potential of the human intelligence to actually see and learn, from the material world, the things that are obvious, but not so obvious. So that's the purpose of Haribol Nitya. Thank you, Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Okay, Honest John is itching for that mic. Go ahead.
I like the way that this kind of it clarifies other things. So okay, so like,
oh yeah,
I don't know about that, but it brings things into clarification. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people know a lot about the Bible, but in the Bible, it means something to me because it's my past, and it's thing.
Sure,
and it kind of clarifies something. And then there's a verse in the Bible that says that if your arm offends you, cut it off. In a spiritual sense, it's not literally, but those entanglements become a part of us.
It's a poetic,
like a body part. Those entanglements become just like us, part of us, and they're hard to get rid of. And just like your arm or your leg, or if your body part offends you, cut it off and get rid of it. It's better for you to lose that body part than your whole body goes.
Do you remember
the hell?
The pastime in which the four Kumaras came to the gate of the spiritual world and met Lord Vishnu, and the doorkeepers, by mistake, stopped them from coming in because they looked like little boys, 5-year-old naked little boys walking around, but they were actually great saintly persons. And they made that mistake, and they cursed them to fall in the material world. And then Vishnu came out, and he told them, he said, I'm so sorry that you were offended. And when a servant of mine offends, I take it personally. So I'll cut off my own arm. This is God speaking, Krishna speaking. If it offends you. So it's not just that if the arm is offending me, if the arm is offending someone else.
Yeah, that's even.
Yes.
It's even deeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so deep that God says it.
Yeah.
To his liberated soul, the devotees.
Good point. I love that.
Yeah. He says it. It's a verse. I will cut off my arm if it offends you. And if some of my devotees offends another devotee, then I take it very seriously.
So our attitude, or those attachments, entanglements that we have, can offend other people.
Absolutely.
And bring them bad.
Therefore it says the devotee moves through the world like the air, never becoming contaminated with anything. It just, they're like water that gurgles very pleasantly.
We have to
hear. They always have in the airport. They have one little, fountain, and people are looking for a little fountain to put in their, patio, or in their, sometimes even in their room in the courtyard. And it's just so pleasing to hear.
So we better be careful and not let our entanglements bring other people down.
Exactly.
Okay.
Therefore, and the more attached we become to hearing just if we just do this every day. I mean, what am I talking? But you're teaching me. But anyway, then we will become saintly persons. By hearing every day like this, you become a saintly person because the saintly person is there inside. And it comes out by this churning. And then when you go and meet someone, just like you met them, and here they are. You may not think that you're a saintly person, but if you do this every day, you become, without your knowledge, a saintly person. And you can't, if you're real, you can't see it yourself. If you're real. If you're not, you'll become proud of it. And you walk around, come over to me, when I first got this the Bhagavad Gita and Ishopanishad from Prabhupada from two separate sources on the top of that mountain, and I realized that it was from the same author, and I started to read it, I was just amazed, not only by every single question that I've been asking, that I'm not getting answers for from anybody, were being answered one after another, but the person who was writing the book never pointed to himself. And I couldn't put it together at first, This is my spiritual master speaking to me. Although I was crying and I was having all these symptoms. But then when I went out of my way to find the address, to find out more about it, and found out that he arrived on the same day in San Francisco, and I saw him for the first time, I just fell on my face. And I realized that what is a saintly person is they never point to themselves. They always point to God personally. They know God personally, and they can point you to God personally. They're not just speaking in the air. And so this is how we become saintly persons, by, standing next to saintly persons in the Srimad-Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially these three books, and then we can go out and we meet people, and when they meet us, there's something different about you. What are you into, Oh yeah, well, I just happened to one of these, I just happened to have one of these, Sharing means caring, and caring means sharing.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Matthew.
I was wondering about the end of this purport of text 45 says that the Lord does not excuse mistreatment of a pure devotee, but that made me think about Canto 4, text 29 of chapter 7. Lord Shiva said, "My dear Lord, my mind and consciousness are always fixed on your lotus feet, which, as the source of all benediction and the fulfillment of all desires, are worshipped by all liberated great sages, because your lotus feet are worthy of worship. With my mind fixed on your lotus feet, I am no longer disturbed by persons who blaspheme me, claiming that my activities are not purified. I do not mind their accusations, and I excuse them out of compassion, just as you exhibit compassion towards all living entities." I was wondering,
what does it mean?
What does it mean that...
It means if you surrender to Krishna exclusively, Sarvadharman pradityaja, Mam ekam sharanam braja. If you give your love to Krishna exclusively, then aham sam tvabhapamyam moksha yishamimashita. Krishna, he excuses you of whatever sinful reactions you have stored up. And therefore, masuchaha, we shouldn't worry. We shouldn't hesitate. And then if we actually do that, then it's not that, see, if you don't know who God is, and if you're not giving your love exclusively to the personality of Godhead, then you're not giving it to the root. And your love that you're trying to give to everyone individually, it doesn't have the same effect. But when you actually give your love to Krishna exclusively, then through the nature, through the tree of life, that love goes everywhere, and you can see everything and everyone actually for what it is, for what they are. But if you take to a process in which the personality of Godhead is not revealed, and persons are not, they're saying that God is love, and they're trying to treat everyone equally with love, but they don't have that knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of everything, including love, then you'll be doing a disservice. So sometimes Krishna, although he doesn't take seriously the offenses of others, he corrects them. If you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya is the most magnanimous feature, or the most magnanimous manifestation of Krishna. And he was so merciful that he would give love of God to anyone who just sees him. But if someone offends another devotee, or if someone would act improperly as a representative of God, then he would chastise them severely. And both those aspects of mercy are required. But if we're impersonalists, we won't be able to see or accept that other aspect of mercy, and we'll only be looking for the pat on the head and the hug and all that. And then we won't be able to hear when we need to be corrected, because we need to be corrected. Every single person in the material world needs to be corrected. So we shouldn't be proud of knowing something about Krishna and try to draw someone to us. We should draw them to Krishna. But materialistic religionists think that that's sectarian. They think that that's arrogant. Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Harir Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gajjanyata. When it says that there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way, but the holy name, but chanting the holy name and the holy scriptures that come from the Supreme Absolute Truth, then they think that we're arrogant.
My understanding that I get from this is what I've heard is that Krishna says, he says that he's the devotee of my devotee, that's my devotee, but whoever claims that they're that everything comes from Krishna, and the goal is to spread that to those that don't have it. That's kirtan, active faming of Krishna.
Yeah, but you can't get it unless you get it from the pure devotee of Krishna.
Excellent.
Yes, Prana, please take us further.
I was noticing that
just the difference in conscious between a materialist and the avadut brahmana and a saintly person. It was said in the purports how the materialist sees these different elements and how one can exploit them for their own sense gratification. How one can, like a businessman can exploit the forest, or we're just trying to use the energy. But the saintly person sees it as the spiritual masters. And I was just marveling at that level of consciousness. And I think it was related to what you just said about the how we all need to be corrected. And I know my Guru Maharaj says, live to be corrected.
Yes.
If one can actually have that state of
That's
consciousness.
a Vaishya-Sikhism. I live to be corrected.
Which is really means the absence of our false ego. Then it seems like one can actually be in that humble mood of a disciple. Receptive. Yeah, the receptive. And that's why, doesn't mean we don't have a spiritual master, but everything becomes the spiritual master coming through everything.
Yeah, that's what it means to see Krishna everywhere. Not that we see Krishna everywhere and therefore everything is Krishna. And we start worshipping each other, or this or that or whatever, as Krishna. That's, what's the term? Pantheism. Thank you. Yeah, that's pantheism. Everything is Krishna. Therefore, I can worship the pencil, I can worship my toenail, I can worship, my iPhone, or, whatever. And it's as good as worshiping Krishna. But it's not like that. Because that oneness doesn't mean like that. Oneness means to be in agreement with Krishna. If you're one with God, that means you're in agreement. When you love someone and you're really one with them, you agree with them. It's not that as soon as there's a difference of opinion, or you can't get it on together, then you just separate, go find someone else when you can get it on with. It's not like that. Very auspicious atmosphere when you two came in. Because so some devotees who come, they're old souls, and some who come are new souls, meaning some are taking it up for the first time, maybe in this time, this life, in many lifetimes, or maybe even the first time in the material world, and sometimes they've been around for a long time, and what was that verse? 6th chapter. Yeah. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. So Krishna consciousness is eternal, and as soon as we do any Krishna consciousness, it stays with us. Whereas material activities, if you don't succeed at that, then you've got to start all over again from scratch the next lifetime. But in Krishna consciousness, it's like an eternal bank account. It's building up, it's building up, it's building up. And then, especially if one has done it a long time, then when you come in contact with Krishna consciousness, like, I know that's what it was with me. I touched this book and I said, this is it. So That's who we're actually looking for. We want to help everybody. The whole world needs to be uplifted, but to spread Christian consciousness, actually, we're looking for those souls, who can understand, the ones that have ears and you can hear. And that's what touches your point. If you have ears to hear, that means your false ego has already been dealt with to a certain extent, previous lifetimes, and you can receive receptive. You're humble by nature and are receptive to hearing the truth. This is what truthfulness means. It doesn't mean you pay your taxes and do what you say you're going to do and all. That's part of it. Part of what honesty means, or truthfulness. But it really means when you can hear what the truth is and you can understand it and accept it. That's an honest person. That's what it means to have ears and to be able to hear. Okay, it's 7:30. Time for me to get ready to take this, because I have to. We're going to finish the recording of. Said we were going to do it today, but I decided to chant my 64 rounds, and I didn't do it this morning. So tomorrow we're going to finish the Anjalila. Yeah, Varaha appearance day, and Dwadashi. So point I was making is that new people who come, especially new people who come are old souls. They play a very important role, and we can't understand it when we're in that position. But we're just very happy to see you, and we pray that you come back again and again, and come back to Krishna's family, because that's where we belong, the spiritual world. There's a spiritual world, and this material world is a reflection of that spiritual world. And all the things that are here are there, but the forms are eternal. Whereas here, they're all temporary, and therefore we cannot, enjoy here, actually. Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you very much, all those out in cyberspace. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. The Avaduta Brahmana ki jai. The 24 gurus of the material world ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow at the same... Wait. I have an announcement. Tomorrow's the 6th, isn't it?
Yes.
We got an announcement that this area, the Xfinity...
Yeah, they're putting in a fiber network.
Yeah, wait for a second, Sarva. I'm doing a public announcement. It needs everybody's attention. Then, they're putting in fiber optics, or a fiber cable, and so there may be disturbance in the service. So, 5 to 5. Yeah. 5 to 5. But just in case, we should have it at 6. Mm-hmm. We should continue it at 6. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Hari Bol. We'll try it with We'll try it right from the phone. Right? Did you cut this off already or not? No. So this is a public service announcement. We're going to be here at 6 o'clock tomorrow, but the Wi-Fi may not be here. So we're going to try to just do it through the phone, through the actual, So we'll be here, and hopefully it'll work. And if not, forgive us, and we'll probably do it again or something. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow, 6 o'clock, same time, same station. The live studios here in Radha Lane. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Hare Bo.